Here we are in my kitchen again, and I think it's time to talk about more fermented stuff. Today I'm going to show you guys how I make sauerkraut. It's incredibly easy and fun, and there's nothing quite like fresh homemade sauerkraut. Here's some sauerkraut I made earlier, and here are the 2 cabbages we are going to use to make sauerkraut today. This sauerkraut fermented for about 14 days. About 10 days is usually good, but it's got a really nice crunch, really good texture, and it's just wonderful to eat and enjoy. So I'll show you how to make this kind of sauerkraut. It's incredibly easy. It really couldn't be any easier. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease and some patience, and then just let the science happen. Of course, you need cabbage. So in the way I make it, I generally use 2 cabbages. This is a pretty normal sized cabbage that I like to use. This one I got, it's massive. Might have a little extra left over, but either way, it'll still work out. And then you need a nice big bowl to mix the cabbage in. There's going to be some elbow grease that's involved in making sauerkraut. So you want a nice big bowl to kind of work the sliced up cabbage. Work it in, and then to ferment you're going to need a jar. You don't necessarily need anything special, but you need a nice good sized jar to hold all the cabbage, and preferably you're going to have something to weigh down the cabbage with in the top of your jar, and then a lid. And it's also preferable to have a lid with a hole in it so you can have an airlock. You don't have to have an airlock, but it's very handy because as all the bacteria and science starts to churn and happen and make that lovely fermented cabbage and turn it into sauerkraut, it does release gases. So it's nice to have an ability to let those gases out. You can just use a typical lid. It'll be okay. Not the end of the world. But if you find you're making this quite a bit, those are good things to have. I think I got the jar with the lid and the weight for, I don't know, like $30 or something on a website. Not that big of a deal. The airlock, I had a million of them because I also brew beer, of course. So let's just get started making some sauerkraut. And some salt magically appeared because I forgot to say that you need salt as well. The kind of salt you want is coarse kosher. This works the best. And now that's all you're going to need to make sauerkraut. Cabbage, salt, boom, done. I have my 2 cabbages. I've gone ahead and already peeled the outer layers of the leaves off and given them a quick little wash, and now they're ready to be sliced up. So pretty straightforward process here. I don't know that there's a particularly common or good technique that's any better than others, but what you're going to be shooting for is just nice thin slices of cabbage. I don't get too concerned if I have a few thick slices here and there, but definitely because we're going to be working it with our hands and we need to start breaking down the cabbage structure a little bit and releasing the juices, the smaller you are able to shred the cabbage, the better results you're going to have. So I'm just going to go ahead and start trimming it off here. And this is probably about what you're looking for. So nice skinny slices. Maybe not what you'd find in store-bought sauerkraut that I'm sure machines can chop up super tiny and fine, but these are totally adequate for our purposes. So I'm just going to do this for all the cabbage that I have. cabbage is all shredded. I have put it in this big bowl and it looks like an incredible amount, and you're wondering, how's it going to fit into here? Well, here's where the magic comes in. Once we add salt and start to work it, it'll break down and start to release juices, and it's going to reduce in size considerably. So the ratio I tend to use for sauerkraut is 1 tablespoon of kosher salt to 1 cabbage. There's a lot of different information out there on what the right proportions and ratios are based on weight. I've just found it simpler to do a 1 tablespoon to 1 cabbage. It's easy for me to remember because I forget things easily, and so far it's yielded excellent results. I haven't had any problem with fermentation times or too salty sauerkraut or anything like that. So it's very simple. We just go ahead and portion out our salt right directly over our cabbage, and then we get stuck in. We just get our hands in here and we start working and kneading the cabbage. So we want to make sure that that salt starts to touch all the surfaces of the shredded cabbage. You're gonna make a mess. Whenever I make sauerkraut, I get cabbage everywhere, which my wife loves, but you just gotta really get in there and start working the cabbage around. You're gonna do this for about 10 minutes. So put on a podcast, put on a show, whatever you want to do while you're working your cabbage, but you're going to need to do this for about 10 minutes to really get a lot of water released from your cabbage and really break it down and kind of soften it up. So after 10 minutes, we'll be ready to move on to putting it in its container. You can see that I've only been doing this for about 30 seconds, and already you're starting to see water being released from the cabbage. What looked like very dry cabbage has now started to get quite wet, and this is just in 30 seconds. So again, after about 10 minutes, you're going to have quite a lot of liquid you're dealing with, and that's a really good thing because we want that liquid for the fermentation process to help it not go bad or moldy when it's fermenting. It has been 5 minutes, and you can see already how it is reduced down quite a bit. And if you look in the bottom of the bowl here, you can see quite a lot of cabbage juice. And all I've been doing is working around, squeezing, rotating the cabbage, making sure just all the salt and all the cabbage just gets broken down really well. So you can see that even if I squeeze it, we're getting a lot of liquid. Remember that we didn't add any water, we didn't add any liquid. This is just the natural juices coming out of the cabbage itself. So we're going to continue to keep working it, and for another 5 minutes, and then we'll be done with this part. It has been 10 minutes, and the cabbage has broken down quite a lot. In fact, when I push it down, it gets all foamy. Look at all that liquid in there. We got foamy cabbage. That's a great thing. That's a good thing to see. Look at all that. Oh, that's so exciting. All right, so now we're going to transfer it to our jar. So we're going to go ahead and grab our jar and just start shoving it in there. Shoving all that cabbage in there. Let's see. Just get in. Again, cabbage gets everywhere. That's part of it. You can always clean up later. Don't try to be tidy. You see all these blog posts online of people with their sauerkraut and other items that they have, and everything's so perfect and lovely and nice. That's not what we're going for here. We're going for good flavor. We're going for tasty sauerkraut, tasty fermented things. We don't need it to look pretty. We don't need it to be tidy. Let's get it in here. And we want all this wonderful liquid here. This is what's going to help the sauerkraut not go bad. So we definitely want that liquid and water in there. So because the sauerkraut must remain submerged. This is how you keep your balance correct with all your bacteria. And again, so all the science can occur. And I don't know exactly all what that science is about, but it's good stuff. Okay, so we've got it in here. Now, if you don't have weights to put on top of your sauerkraut, and all this does is keep the cabbage itself pushed down so the water level can stay a little higher and go on top. You can also use saran wrap or cling film. Put some cling film over the top, fill it with water so it comes down and fills up this gap inside, and then you can screw your lid on over that cling film and it will work the exact same way. But it's just handy to have these weights. So I'm going to put those weights on there, and we don't have to add any water. If your cabbage did not release as much water as mine did, may not, you want to work with the freshest cabbage you can. You'll get the best amount of juices from that. You want to make sure you are working your cabbage really well and working it for at least that 10 minutes. But if you're not getting a lot of liquid off of your cabbage for whatever reason, it's not the end of the world. Just go ahead and top it up with regular water to cover all your cabbage in here, and you should be perfectly fine as well. So, got that done. Pop the lid on. I am going to use my airlock, so get that going. I like to use this kind of airlock. We just fill it up with a little bit of water. Now the fermentation is going to be very vigorous on this, so you'll also want to place this in a little pan. I usually use a disposable like pie pan, which I'm going to try to find right now. Maybe pie pan. Where are you, pie pan? Pie pan. Here we go. So then do this. I usually just drop it in there like that. Then we want to wipe this off, remove any extra cabbage. And the final important thing to do is to mark the date when you made this, so you remember to come back in 10 days and that you're ready to go. The nice thing about glass, so you can see these are dates from earlier. I haven't really tried to scrub it off very much, but you can just, I like to take a Sharpie to the glass. You can put a piece of masking tape or something on here, but I'm going to go ahead and make the date. It's 4/27, so April 27th. And now I'll know to come back in 10 days and enjoy the sauerkraut. So the following video you're going to see is just the process of it fermenting, and it's going to get a lot browner, but that's all right. That's what we want to see until we're ready to eat it. It has been about 12 hours, and already there's a lot of activity going on in the jar. You can see the airlock is quite cloudy, and actually liquid has already started to be pushed out of the airlock into the tray, which is why I have the tray. So nice active fermentation has started, and this is just day one, so it's going to continue for pretty active, probably for about another 5 days. And there we have it. We have sauerkraut. It's been 10 days, and it's all done fermenting, or as much as I like to ferment it. You can let it go. There is some play with how much you ferment, depending on your preferences. But I like about 10 days. So all you have to do now is just take off your airlock if you're using that, and remove your weights. And smell that. It smells like funky goodness. Look at that. Beautiful, wonderful sauerkraut. And what you can do, it's going to be pretty, it's going to smell really strong, and that's cool. That's all happy and healthy. And all you do is now pop it in your fridge, or if you want to transfer it to some existing containers, I tend to do that. You just pop this in your fridge, and once it cools down really nicely, it'll slow and pretty much stop the fermenting process, and then also mellow out the flavors and be a real nice, crunchy, good sauerkraut. So that's how you make sauerkraut. I hope you learn something from this, and I hope you tackle sauerkraut yourself and just take part in the goodness, the good funkiness that is fermented cabbage. Thanks.